All right, admit it. You got this one in about 3 notes. If you play a little Name That Tune with the tune we choose to start the show every day, you nailed this one immediately. It reminds me of our good friend Paul from Preston, who likes to say, I got it in 1 note. 1 note, I tell you. We haven't heard from Paul in a while. He must be very upset following the outcome of last week's election. Just a guess on the part of yours truly. But that song, of course, is Hotel California by the Eagles, which was number 1 on this day in 1977. 48 years ago, the Eagles take Hotel California to number 1. And it's a song that I think could be number 1 on the charts even today. Because, gosh darn it, don't we still love it? Speaking of things we love, at least things that I love, did you hear? Did you hear what our meteorologist Jill Taylor said this morning?
A pattern where we've got a high off to the south and east, that Bermuda high that will actually pump in warmer, more tropical air. So if you're longing for that consistent, warmer air, it's on its way. We still have to get through the rest of this week.
Pump it in, baby. Pump in that warmer air. Although I will say, the air we had yesterday was absolutely perfect for spending some time out in a greenhouse with our friends at Reap Green Solutions here in the region. The environmental charity does great work, helps you with energy efficiency in your home, all kinds of programs for things that you're doing outdoors, including trees, etc., which is what we worked on in the greenhouse. I got a chance to go out to the Rare Charitable Research Reserve in Cambridge, where this greenhouse is in place. And I got to tell you, every time I go to Rare, I'm more impressed by it. Did you know, fun fact here in the region, that the acreage of the Rare Charitable Research Reserve right here in our own region, most of it being in Cambridge, but it is larger in area, larger in size than Central Park in Manhattan. Everybody talks and raves about Central Park, and we've got this research reserve here in our community with beautiful trails to walk around, some areas where you can gather for programming, etc., as big as, actually bigger than, Central Park in Manhattan. I don't know if we talk about that enough. Maybe they don't want people traipsing through it all the time. There's no carousel and restaurant and all those other things, but a beautiful piece of natural area that we have within the borders of the region of Waterloo that is even bigger than Rare's or than Central Park in New York. Pretty cool, I've always thought. And thanks to our friends at REAP for having me out to help plant, what did we do? Bitternut, hickory, and honey locust. I'll take trees that I've never heard of before for $400, Alex, but got to get them started. We didn't, they're just in little pots right now, the seeds, to become the full trees that they will become thanks to the work that REAP does. Part of my Farwell for Hire duties yesterday, which reminds me to remind you to get your Farwell for Hire 50/50 ticket. Go to cf5050.ca. Do it before Friday, and you will be eligible for the $2,500 cash early bird prize, thanks to TLC Pet Food in New Hamburg. But the jackpot, the overall jackpot, now more than $35,000, which means your take-home share would be $17,500 and climbing. Get your tickets right now. Start as little as $10 at cf5050.ca.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
All right, let's get to your Farwell Show 5 for this Wednesday morning, the 7th of May. Number 1, Prime Minister Mark Carney is expected to brief Canada's premiers today following his seemingly successful first meeting with the U.S. president. Carney and Donald Trump spent about 2 hours together at the White House yesterday, including about half an hour in front of the cameras in the Oval Office and a private luncheon. It was the first face-to-face discussion about Canada-U.S. relations and Trump's ongoing trade war since Carney was sworn in as Prime Minister on March 14th. Carney said the leaders are now, quote, fully engaged, but there is more work to do. Prime Minister also said he will host a call today with Canada's premiers to discuss his conversation with Trump and the work that needs to be done. Future discussions between Carney and Trump will include another in-person conversation in June when Carney hosts G7 leaders, including Trump, at a summit in Alberta. Number 2, Andrew Scheer will be the interim opposition leader in the House of Commons during the spring sitting, because that worked out so well the last time. The Conservative caucus chose Scheer for the temporary role since party leader Pierre Poilievre does not have a seat in Parliament. Poilievre lost in the Ottawa riding of Carleton in last week's general election. He's expected to seek a seat in Alberta in a by-election. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning. 133 Cardinals have begun the centuries-old rituals to elect a successor to Pope Francis. They will elect the 267th pontiff at the Roman Catholic Church, who will require 2/3 of the votes to win. The Cardinals surrender their cell phones, and airwaves around the Vatican are jammed to prevent them all communications until they find a new leader. Number 4, the city of Cambridge is delaying a decision on a proposed development freeze in Preston. The city posted to social media yesterday afternoon that the discussion about the proposed freeze had been pulled from last night's council agenda. No date has been set for the discussion to return to council, and thanks to Ward 3 councillor in Cambridge, Corey Kimpson, for alerting us to that agenda item being pulled yesterday after we mentioned it on the Farwell 5 yesterday morning, telling you that it was coming up at council, this proposed freeze on development in Preston. But Councillor Kimpson says, nope, we're pulling that one. And then the city posted it to social media later in the day. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, Canada's emergency public alerting system will be put to the test today. Alert Ready will be broadcast on TV, radio, and many wireless devices at different times in each province and territory, except for Quebec. It's part of Canada, but I guess they don't get the Canada alerts. The test simulates an emergency, but requires no action from the public. It's part of Canada's effort to ensure the system works and raises awareness. You can expect that test this afternoon at 12:55. Now you know. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Wednesday morning. So, how'd the Prime Minister do? You want to give Mark Carney a grade following his meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump? You be the teacher. Let us know. What grade does PM Carney get? We'll take your grades right after this on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Not just my views, but yours as well. It is a two-way conversation. I mean, you can be a passive listener and just eavesdrop, but the minute we begin the show every day, our phone line's open at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. I'm wondering what you made of the Prime Minister's trip to Washington yesterday. We'll go to the phones. Doug is with us. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Mike. I called you for another reason, and since you asked first, I give him a B plus with Gus going to A simply because there's always room for improvement. And I'm hoping, bottom line, I'm hoping that we can now stop seeing the stupid fake news up on Facebook about him talking about Canadians being gullible, and he's in bed with Trump to put Canada as the 51st state. I'm so sick and tired of this, and yesterday he stood up for us, and that more than anything else is what made me happy. But ever since you and I talked about food, on the way back from Port Dover on Sunday, and again yesterday I was on the road heading north, and I went past a field that was absolutely chock full of wonderful growing asparagus. And I wanted to find out again from you where deep fried asparagus. Who's going to have this and what and when? Because my wife wants to be there this year.
All right, Doug, don't let me down now, okay? I'm going to give you plenty of notice.
All right.
Okay, on Sunday, June the 1st, we will be at Barry's Asparagus in the beautiful community of Cambridge, just on the cusp of North Dumfries there. Barry's Asparagus, June the 1st, Sunday, June the 1st, deep fried asparagus day for Farwell for Hire.
You got it.
Okay?
All right.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Mike.
Take care, Doug. Stay safe on the roads. That's in partnership with the Schmuck Truck as well. Brad and Christine come out. They deep fry the asparagus right off the field into the fryer. It's amazing. You're going to love it, and it's all for our Farwell for Hire fundraiser. Sunday, June the 1st. Mark it down like Doug just did. Continuing on the phones this morning, Kevin, good morning.
Hi, good morning, Mark. Well, regarding your meeting, a couple of things I really kind of liked. It was one of them was actually standing up for,
Kevin, I'm so sorry, but your phone sounds like it sounds terrible today. Are you able to pick it up or do any better with it?
Sure. Just give me 1 second.
Be careful out there. Whatever you're doing.
Any better now?
Oh my gosh, bless your heart.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, regarding the meeting, I like the fact that he actually right to Trump's face, he said that Canada is not for sale, same as like the White House is not for sale. I really like that. But what really still bothers me is that Donald Trump is still not calling our prime minister a prime minister. He either used to call Trudeau a governor and just keep calling him Mark. And that kind of bothered me. I think Carney should have just called him Donald. To tell him that, you cannot just call the dignitaries of the countries by first name. That really bothered me, that how disrespectful Trump is toward Canada, that he doesn't want to call our prime minister Mr. Prime Minister, but he kept calling him Mr. President. But that kind of the thing that really bothered me, and I hope that gets fixed somehow by either of them.
All right, Kevin, I appreciate the call. It was rather noticeable that the references to the Prime Minister were simply by his first name, Mark. And yes, Prime Minister Carney responded to or referred to the President in a much more formal way, Mr. President. I guess that's our Canadian politeness showing through, and perhaps a little bit of our Canadian humility. Yeah, you want to call me by my first name, call me by my first name. I'm not into these titles anyway. I don't know. That's what was going through Prime Minister Carney's mind, or Mark's mind, as the president referred to him. But I think what I liked about Prime Minister Carney's approach yesterday is that he laid the appropriate layers of flattery onto the president, because that's what you need. He needs to feel as though he is the superior being in the room. He appreciates the flattery, and I think when you meet him in that place, you are going to have a far more successful meeting with him. And I think it turned out to be pretty successful for the Prime Minister yesterday. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I had an interesting conversation yesterday with Rob Broman of Conestoga Electric. I hope he doesn't mind me sharing it. I don't think he will. But Conestoga Electric has stepped up in a pretty big way for the Farwell for Hire fundraising campaign this year, and I'm certainly appreciative of it. I'm going to be doing some work with the team at Conestoga Electric later this month. They've made a $5,000 donation to the campaign. Very grateful for that. I'm going to just be blunt. My skills are not near worth that much, but hey, thank you very much, because what this means, of course, is helping us towards our $150,000 fundraising goal this year. It's a drive for 1.5. That's what I'm calling the campaign, because if we can raise $150,000 this year on the fundraising campaign, we will have reached a total of $1.5 million over the years, 12 years now, of doing Farwell for Hire. So thank you to Conestoga Electric for stepping up with that big donation. And in my conversation with Rob yesterday, he said, we're going to try to get that 50-50 jackpot going for you. And thought what Rob was proposing, I think, is a pretty fine idea, actually, for any company that might want to incentivize employees getting involved in the 50-50 raffle, because what Conestoga is going to do is match their employees' purchases. So if an employee wants to make a purchase, then they'll of a 50-50 ticket, then Conestoga Electric will use their recreation fund to match that employee purchase. And then what happens is, so that employee, so say the employee's name is Mike. Mike buys his tickets. Conestoga Electric matches in Mike's name. And if Conestoga Electric wins the prize that they bought in the name of that employee, the employee will get half the prize and they're going to kick the other half back to the charity. So the employee still wins. It's like the, matching RRSP contributions up to a certain percentage, right? They're going to match your 50-50 purchases and then kick some of the money back to the charity if it's the company's ticket that wins. But also, the employee could win and they're incentivized to buy more tickets, which just drives up the jackpot. If we get a $150,000 50-50 jackpot, I don't have to do much work, do I, to raise that money this year? Anyway, you can get your tickets at cf5050.ca. Maybe you're a business that would like to follow what Conestoga Electric is going to do for their employees. Ticket packages start at just $10. And if you buy before Friday, this Friday at noon, you are going to be eligible for the $2,500 early bird cash prize thanks to TLC Pet Food. Just like that, $2,500 in your pocket if you have the winning number and you buy it before Friday at noon. Again, cf5050.ca. And thanks to Conestoga Electric as well for stepping up in the way that they have as we make the drive for 1.5 this year, looking for a $150,000 fundraiser. All right, I'm going to get you to the 570 News Center for an update, and then let's talk to a political scientist and get her perspective on Mark Carney's performance yesterday in his meeting with Donald Trump. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio.
This is where today's topics turn into today's talking points. It's local and it's Democratic radio at its finest. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
Takes two to tango, right? But no, I do. I mean, I believe it would be a massive tax cut for the Canadian citizens. You get free military, you get tremendous medical cares and other things.
As you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, Buckingham Palace, that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever.
The Mike Farwell Show continues
on 570 News Radio.
A bit of the exchange yesterday in the Oval Office between U.S. President Donald Trump and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, who made it clear that Canada is not for sale and never will be for sale. Julie Simmons is an associate professor in the Department of Political Science at the University of Guelph, joins us on the program. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
What is your take on Prime Minister Carney's performance, if you will, in his meeting with Donald Trump yesterday?
Well, I think he was firm and calm and came across as the adult, and I think emerged from the meeting with, the expectations he had going into it, which was that there wouldn't be, a declaration that tariffs had been lifted. But on the other hand, he said, well, I didn't expect specific progress today, even when you're making progress. And I think that is the key point here is, it's the end of the beginning, and now we can proceed to other aspects of the ongoing renewed friendship between Canada and the United States, and moving forward into a renegotiation of some kind of security and economic partnership in 2026.
I like your point about tariffs not having been lifted, because I think there might have been some expectations that the Prime Minister had to manage going into that meeting yesterday. It really was more of a feeling out session than anything, wasn't it?
I think you're right there. I mean, these, even the last CUSMA agreement, it took months, if not years, to negotiate. And there are so many aspects to it, so many different industries involved. And, And the province is involved too, not at the table itself, but, in the kind of back channels with the federal government. And so, we weren't going to see them have a lunch yesterday and come out with a new agreement. But what did come out of that lunch is apparently there were discussions about, steel, aluminum, the automobile industry, fentanyl, the things that Canada has done to tighten border security, defense issues, military spending, the Arctic, all these things were discussed. And Trump was quite interested in Carney's views on things like Ukraine, Russia, Palestine, Israel. So, there was some actual genuine conversation that was had there. And I think it's a good beginning.
What should we expect to see moving forward? What priorities do you think Prime Minister Carney will try to advance as this relationship now begins anew?
Well, I mean, that's a tough one to say very specifically. I think what he's obviously going to focus on, he can't force the United States to the table, and he has said that, you can't negotiate when the tariffs are in place. So, I wouldn't expect anything in the short term. But, we do see him meeting with the premiers today. And then also, I think he can turn his attention to trying to reduce the internal trade barriers within Canada, because provinces make it actually somewhat difficult, or protecting their own industries make it difficult for trade to flow sometimes, even though we have had an internal trade agreement of some sort in place since the late 1990s. So, I think that he can focus on that, and also in terms of kind of developing, alternative routes and, whatever kind of infrastructure is required for Canadian businesses to access alternative markets to the United States. And I am sure that there will be some diplomatic conversations that don't make the media in terms of, not the heads of state speaking, but rather Canadian officials to American officials at some point.
Much has been made in the last 24 hours or so, Julie, about Prime Minister Carney's language thanking Donald Trump for his, quote, transformational leadership. I think it was a deliberate choice of words and a pretty darn fine one. But what do you make of the language that Prime Minister Carney used in that regard?
Well, I think it was very carefully chosen, and it's sort of like when you have a child that is acting out and maybe being extremely boisterous and maybe even boastful. You can describe that as a child with a healthy sense of self-esteem, or you can describe it in negative terms. So, but the message is the same, and I think it's the same with the adjective of transformative, because I think we can all agree that it has indeed been transformative, disrupting the ethos of free trade around the world. And, we'll see what happens going forward. But I think that he was very deliberate and careful in that choice of words, because it has, some negative connotations and some positive connotations.
Do you think Canadians can, maybe even should, feel optimistic following this first meeting?
Well, I don't think there's any reason not to feel optimistic. I don't think anybody was expecting that there would be a wide agreement between the two leaders yesterday. And so, it certainly didn't turn negative, especially in the sort of public part of the meeting, in the way that we've seen with, say, Zelensky, leader of the Ukraine. And, we're not talking about how the meeting sort of was tension-filled and negative in any sense in terms of conflict. But I think it's very clear that Carney was firm. I mean, even when Trump said, well, never say never in terms of, Canada becoming a 51st state, Carney mouthed the words never.
And Donald Trump didn't refer to him as governor.
That's true. He didn't. So I guess that's some progress. It's funny, though, because I think that Trump was making a very big kind of demarcation in terms of his relationship with Trudeau versus his relationship with Carney, or them as individuals, not so much their relationships. But, at the same time, it is the Liberal Party still, and there are, he has very negative opinions of Chrystia Freeland, who, in fact, was a very firm and strong negotiator in the previous round of free trade negotiations, and, could very likely be involved in this next one as well. We don't yet know what, a new cabinet will look like down the road after the election. But, there is a lot of overlap, as well as new faces and new ideas with Mark Carney at the helm. But, Trump seemed to think that there was a firm demarcation between the Trudeau administration and the Carney administration, and I just don't think that that's the case, and nor do Canadians understand it that way.
Julie, I appreciate your perspective on the show today. Thanks very much for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Mike.
Julie Simmons is an associate professor in the Department of Political Science at the University of Guelph, weighing in with her thoughts on the Carney-Trump meeting yesterday. Just on that last point about not being referred to as governor, I feel as though, ever since he made that announcement of his resignation and Mark Carney was elected the new leader of the Liberal Party, the bus just keeps getting repeatedly driven over Justin Trudeau. And I'm not sure there are many people shedding tears over that, but I just feel as though every day presents a new opportunity to remind folks how bad things were going under the leadership of the other guy. What are your takeaways from the meeting yesterday between Mark Carney and Donald Trump? Are you concerned at all about the Prime Minister's language that, thank you for your transformational leadership to the President of the United States? I think it was deliberate and pretty clever, quite frankly, because he didn't say if he agreed with the transformations or thought they were positive by any stretch. But if you use a nice big fancy word like, oh, you are a transformational leader, it can make somebody who likes flattery feel pretty flattered, can't it? Your thoughts on the meeting that was between the Prime Minister and the President in the Oval Office yesterday. Would love to hear from you on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
I think what he's obviously going to focus on, he can't force the United States to the table, and he has said can't negotiate when the tariffs are in place. So I wouldn't expect anything in the short term. Also, I think he can turn his attention to trying to reduce the internal trade barriers within Canada, because provinces make it actually somewhat difficult, or protecting their own industries make it difficult for trade to flow.
Provinces, you say. Not lost on me that the G7 meetings, when Canada will host and Prime Minister Carney later this summer, will take place in Alberta, where the sabers of separation are being rattled even as we speak. It's a vast landmass, this country of ours, and I would like to see that. Obviously, this was an important meeting for Prime Minister Carney to take and head to Washington with a Canadian delegation to meet with President Trump to talk about the issues between the two countries, to remind the president that the relationship is valued, but it is a reciprocal relationship. It is not as lopsided as the president would have anyone to believe when it comes to trade, etc. But that being said, there was a lot of talk during this election campaign about the need to break down interprovincial trade barriers, shore up the Canadian economy so it's more self-sufficient, and let's ensure that we move in that direction. That was Julie Simmons, by the way, an associate professor of political science at the University of Guelph, who joined us to talk about the meeting between the Prime Minister and the President yesterday. And I wonder your thoughts on what you heard. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. The comment from Prime Minister Carney that seems to be getting the most attention is his description of President Trump as transformational.
Thank you for your hospitality and above all for your leadership. You're You're a transformational president, focus on the economy with a relentless focus on the American worker, securing your borders, ending the scourge of fentanyl and other opioids, and securing the world. And I've been elected with my colleagues here, with the help of my colleagues here, I'm going to spread the credit, to transform Canada with a similar focus on the economy, securing our borders, again on fentanyl, much greater focus on defense and security, securing the Arctic and developing the Arctic. And, you know, the history of Canada and the U.S. is we're stronger when we work together, and there's many opportunities to work together, and I look forward to addressing some of those issues that we have, but also finding those areas of mutual cooperation so we can move forward.
I think that was deliberate use of transformational on the part of Prime Minister Carney. And it works really well. You're a transformational president. That sounds lovely if you take it in the spirit of being transformational positively. I'm not so sure that Prime Minister Carney believes the transformations have all been positive, if any, but it's the right way and the right language to use, in my opinion. As Catherine points out via email to Mike at 570news.com, it's called stroking his ego. You're absolutely right, Catherine. And Elias says, I give Prime Minister Carney an A, a grade of A, for his performance yesterday. It was straightforward. He made it clear that Canada was not for sale, period. However, he could not achieve the rest of what we want, like the lifting of those trade barriers, those tariffs. You're right, Elias. I'm not sure we could have expected that much yesterday, but I think we're off to a pretty good start here. Bill is on the phone with us. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good.
Good.
I just have a comment about Trump yesterday.
Sure.
But isn't he basically doing what we want to do, too, like shop in Canada? He wants people to shop in the United States, make their products in the United States, not bring them in from foreign countries. Isn't that what we're trying to do, too?
We are certainly trying to break down the interprovincial trade barriers, yes, make our economy more self-sufficient without relying as much on others. That is exactly what Donald Trump, yes, he wants made in America, right? He wants to produce on his own soil. Yeah, absolutely.
But some things just can't be done because they're just too expensive.
Well, and that's hence going back to the beginning of free trade back in the 1980s, right?
Yes, like if you go, I never even heard of a dollar store growing up, but everything in a dollar store is from China except for the food.
Sure.
And there's one of them on every corner beside a Tim Hortons.
It is absolutely, I appreciate the call, Bill. It is absolutely a growing brand. And yes, we continue the pursuit of stuff, particularly inexpensive stuff. And I'll remind you that this was exactly what we were warned about when free trade was opened up all those decades ago. It'll be a race to the bottom in terms of getting the least expensive goods that are probably cheaply made, not just inexpensive in terms of cost, but poor craftsmanship involved in them. I don't think there's any putting that genie back in the bottle, though. We are where we are in terms of, and it has had benefits. Like if we were to do the list of pros and cons, sure, we could put on the con side of the list cheaply made, inexpensive goods. We have commodified everything, and we just accumulate stuff because it's so inexpensive to accumulate. Certainly on the con side of the ledger. But in terms of the economic growth and the prosperity that free trade has brought to so many parts of the world, there's a great argument on that side, a great economic argument on that side of things as well. And so here we are today, trying to figure out our place in this new reality. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. You may recall the tragedy last summer of two women from Cambridge who decided to take a floaty onto the Grand River to just enjoy a day on the water, had a couple of bevies and, well, ran into some serious distress, and their bodies were recovered about 24 hours after. That had prompted calls for greater safety measures along our Grand River, and those calls have been heeded by the region. We'll get the chance to share updates on that story before 10:30, so in the next 30 minutes. And right after this update from the 570 News Center, Canada should open its doors and accept more immigration from border states in the U.S. And we're going to have a new Office of Supplier Integrity and Compliance, you say. We'll learn more about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Wednesday mornings at 10, we check in with the folks who are minding Ottawa's business. At the Blacklocks Reporter, Tom Korski, the managing editor there, joins us for updates. Tom, as always, thank you for your time. Good morning.
Oh, good morning, Mike.
An Office of Supplier Integrity and Compliance. Do tell, sir, this excites me. I don't get often excited about offices of the federal government, but this one sounds promising.
It is exciting, isn't it? After 158 years, we have an Office of Integrity and Contracting. Isn't that something? The problem is there's been a regime, an ethics regime, they call it, that goes back 10 years. And the point of the regime was after the sponsorship scandal, you start to lose track, but there are these tombstones along the path of good intentions that leads to hell. There was the sponsorship scandal that sent federal contractors to the penitentiary and one public works department manager. That was way back in 2006. And then 9 years after that, they set up an integrity regime. And the integrity regime was to blacklist contractors who were involved in monkey business, whether they were even convicted or pled guilty to criminal charges. And that didn't work well because we had ArriveCan, a famous $60 million program. Everyone remembers that. Perhaps you remember, Mike, when the RCMP kicked down the door of the lead contractor in Woodlawn, Ontario, with a search warrant that said that detailed allegations of fraudulent billing. That was something. And then there were two managers at the Public Health Agency. They were suspended. And then there was another executive who was involved who mysteriously destroyed 1,700 emails. So here we are, after this trail of tears. The Department of Public Works says we really, really mean it. This time, we have an Office of Supplier Integrity and Compliance. We love ethics so much, you don't want to know how much we love ethics. It is exciting.
I mean, we need something for the civil service to do.
I think it's the criminal code is really, and the 10 Commandments covers it, but that's just me.
I love it, the 10 Commandments. Okay, Canadians should welcome illegal immigrants from the United States in the name of humanity. I beg your pardon.
Amnesty International, the Secretary General for the entire organization, was on Parliament Hill, spoke to reporters, said that Canada should be a leader, and that there should be a welcoming policy for illegal immigrants who are in the United States. Problem, there's 11 million of them by U.S. estimate, and that includes 750,000 in border states, mainly in upstate New York and Washington State. Amnesty says they believe there is a legal obligation to accept these people who will face deportation, primarily, according to American figures, back to Mexico and Latin American countries, if they are deported from the United States. But everyone is aware of the news down in the States. There is no legal obligation, in fact. Supreme Court had a ruling on this 2 years ago. They said there's legally no such thing as a refugee from upstate Michigan. We do not recognize that. We've had our own case law on that. But the figures are staggering. It's interesting on immigration, Mike. We always say some people know what time it is, some people don't. The tide has gone out in terms of public disfavor with poorly managed immigration. Any government that wants to start accepting illegal immigrants from the United States, good night and good luck.
Yes, indeed, good night and good luck. And along those same lines, immigrants and immigration, the Department of Canadian Heritage has concluded there is anti-immigration sentiment in this country?
This is a disturbing report that has it's upset a lot of people, but it's on the level. We see it through access to information. The Department of Canadian Heritage spent a lot of money. It was $128,000. They hired a consultant to track Facebook and Twitter posts by people who were discussing the aftermath of the Hamas attacks, the killing and kidnapping of Jews in Israel, including 8 Canadians on October 7th, famous atrocity. And what they concluded was, after there were anti-Israel street protests, including, this was documented, death to Jews rallies in some Canadian cities, and firebombing of Jewish kindergartens, houses of worship, they concluded that there was an anti-immigration sentiment expressed online in social media by friends of Israel. I can tell you, Mike, no joke, there have been more people who've been upset by these documents that we see through access to information because their implication is absolutely dark. And the implication was that the Department of Canadian Heritage characterized all friends of Israel who were outspoken in their expression of repulsion as right-wing extremists, air quotes. It is, forgive my language, it's one of the damnedest reports I've ever seen, and you paid for it.
Well, and the other thing that strikes me here, Tom, is we're talking about a scouring of online content, social media posts, and I can't help but think of any connection to any future online harms bills that are being brought forward federally.
Absolutely. The Cabinet has always betrayed a fetish about control of social media. They don't understand the Internet is a form of communication. It is not broadcasting. It's people talking amongst themselves, especially Facebook. That's friends and it's family. But what was the characterization in this report? I quote from it. Why characterize it? Why don't I just read this one line? Several influential accounts, particularly on Twitter, have taken a staunch pro-Israel position since the attacks on October 7th. A clear narrative from these accounts includes attempts to equate support for Palestinian civilians with support for Hamas, end of quote. To which you and I would say, well, if you don't like it, don't read it. But they treat it as a threat to public institutions. This is your government. It's incredible.
I'm glad somebody's keeping an eye on it, Tom. And as always, I appreciate your time on the show. Thanks for being here again.
Thank you, Mike.
Tom Korski is the managing editor with the Blacklocks Reporter. It's worthwhile stuff at blacklocks.ca, the only reporter-owned and operated newsroom in Ottawa. Again, it's subscription-based, but well worth it at blacklocks.ca. Tom Korski, the managing editor, joins us every Wednesday morning at 10 as he minds Ottawa's business and shares with us what the newsroom has learned. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, they say that you can't fight City Hall. We've heard that saying before. We've complained and kvetched about it on the show. But maybe, just maybe, sometimes City Hall is listening, or regional headquarters in this case. Amy Hartel joins the show this morning. Amy, you may remember our conversation with last summer. She's a safety advocate for the Grand River and makes time for us again this morning. Amy, good morning.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for having me back.
Thanks so much for coming back, and thanks for the work that you've done, because as I understand from a media release from the region of Waterloo, your calls for safety upgrades on the Grand have been answered.
Yeah, we're pretty happy about that. The region has taken some action, installing clearer safety signage, and the signs include directions toward exits, and then there's also on-the-water warning, 4 new danger signs, new portage signs. And yeah, I was just out there actually today checking it out. You can definitely see that there is an obstacle coming ahead from 1,000 meters away, which is such an improvement.
Why are these signs and these upgrades important to you?
Well, my advocacy began in response to a tragic incident last summer where two women lost their lives at the Hidden Valley Dam in particular, which is owned by the region of Waterloo. So, despite being warned about dangers at the site for 5 years ago now by another paddler, Ann Wallner, They didn't do anything to respond to the lack of adequate safety signage and awareness that the dam is approaching. So we really believe that the lack of signage was one of the elements that contributed to that tragedy. So, yeah, our goal was just to raise awareness, lobby the region to improve those safety measures, and take some responsibility for safety of recreational users around the Hidden Valley Dam. And we're sure that this will prevent other incidents in the future. So,
what did you have to do to get to this point? I mean, you've been a very strong voice. We've talked on the show before. I've seen you quoted in other media. What work went into getting here?
It started with a Facebook kind of page. I did know Rachel. She was a friend of mine. But it just started with this Facebook page and us thinking, she's a beautiful, smart woman who, just didn't have the right information. So we started there, and then, we started emailing people. A lot of the people in the Facebook group took it upon themselves to write their local MPs and write to the region of Waterloo. And then I also went in and spoke at a regional council meeting. And I feel like when I went in there was some plans already on the go to look at the safety around the dam. But there was also some people that didn't really know that the dam was owned by the region, and it was their responsibility to have those safety measures around the dam and not the Grand River Conservation Authority, for example.
Now that these new signs are in place and these safety upgrades have been made, is the job done, or is there a next step for you?
Well, our next step, myself and a few other groups, were focusing on improving access point information to ensure that users are more informed about safety before they enter the water. So we have a region tourism organization that's planning to add signage to 2 access points in Kitchener. And that would provide critical safety information for recreational users before they get in the water. And then we also are working with local canoe and kayak clubs that are interested in developing a community awareness and safety campaign that we can promote through social media. And then we're also hopeful to see some changes along the Speed River and the Grand River in Cambridge. We're just waiting to see if the City of Cambridge will develop or implement a safety plan similar to the initiatives that the region has taken. And as well, we're talking with Brant County, and they have a lot of plans to improve their signage and safety around the Penman's Dam and at their access points too. So just staying on top of that and hopefully getting some other municipalities and cities to follow suit like the region did here at the Hidden Valley Dam.
You mentioned, Amy, that you just got off the water this morning for this conversation. We know that you are, an enthusiast and of being out there on the water. As we enter another season where people will be trying to get out and take advantage of these beautiful waterways that we have, what would you like them to know as they engage in those activities?
Well, I think mostly I just want to emphasize that you have to take ownership for your own safety. It really comes down to taking care of your family, your friends, and yourself when you're on the water. So, whether you're kayaking, canoeing, fishing, or just exploring around the water, safety begins with you. So it's vital to understand the water flow conditions before you head out. Water levels and currents, they change really quickly. So if it rains 3 days before, 3 days later, it's a beautiful sunny day, the water could be going 10 times as fast as you've maybe seen it at a summertime low when it looks more like a lazy river. So you have to check that latest flow information, and it's updated hourly on the GRC flow chart available on their website. And then, if you don't know how to access the current flow information or identify hazards, don't hesitate to ask somebody. There's lots of knowledgeable people, river safety experts, there's paddling clubs, social media groups, like staff at outdoor stores know a lot. And then study Google Maps before you go out there. You know, you can see right on the Google Map, satellite view. You can identify safe entry and exit points and see the hazards like dams and even big rocks and rapids. You can see it on the Google Map, so you're kind of ready. And then most important step is always using the proper safety equipment. I know a lot of people have been talking about that with this, but, you know, always have that paddle with you, and remember that wearing a life jacket isn't a recommendation. Like, it is a recommendation, but it's actually a must on the water, especially for your kids. Keep them safe. And, like, proper equipment can be the difference between a safe day and an accident. So, you know, and something else I just want to mention is that, you know, all of this work is, you know, in memory of the 2 women that lost their lives. They didn't intend to go out that day with any harm, but they lost their lives because they were underinformed about the dangerous conditions and how to stay safe on the river, you know. So their story is just serving as this powerful reminder that there's a need for proper safety measures, education, and community awareness. So just keep this conversation going. And, we hope to honor their memory by making these waterways safer for everyone so that no one has to face a tragedy like that again.
Amy, thanks for being an important part of the conversation. I appreciate your time on the show this morning.
Thanks so much, Mike. Appreciate you too.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Amy Hartel is a Grand River safety advocate, and it was her advocacy that started with a Facebook post that has led to safety upgrades, more signage, letting people know what's coming up ahead far in advance, the exits, the entrance points, etc. On our Grand River. The speed, you name it. We've got beautiful waterways and opportunities to enjoy outdoor activity as the weather turns nicer. We just want to make sure that we are as safe as possible when we do so. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We had a conversation on the show Monday about addictions, substance abuse, and an idea that the provincial government will consult on around those who end up in our court system or our prison system be directed to mandatory treatment for their addiction, if indeed they're struggling with that when they enter the system. And that has received some pushback from experts in the space who say we are violating one's charter rights when we're forcing them into treatment. And it connects to a motion that was brought forward to Regional Council a few weeks ago, asking that we appeal to the province to keep our CTS site open in downtown Kitchener. It's a political tightrope, to say the very least. And this being Wednesday, an hour from now at 11:30, Rob Deutschman joins us, the former regional councillor for political R&D. And we'll talk about that tightrope that municipalities are walking when it comes to people struggling with addictions, the community's response to them, and how we properly and appropriately provide support. Again, that's coming up 1 hour from now. But after this update from the 570 News Center, I can't wait to tell you about the good games and how you can get involved this summer. Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, I've been telling you all morning that you're going to really enjoy the story of the good games. I'm positive that you will. And I enjoy it even more because of the gentleman who sits across from me in studio, Mr. Jim Rooney, who's the former co-owner, president, and governor of the Guelph Storm, a member of the Guelph Sports Hall of Fame. And you and I, Mr. Rooney, go back so darn far now. It's like catching up with an old friend today.
Mike, I feel like I'm right at home.
I love it.
And you are an old friend. and thank you for your contributions to this community I mean, the fact that you're wearing your shirt and you use May as Farwell for hire, that says it all. Our community is so much stronger because of you and your commitment and your willingness to give back to the community. So thank you.
Well, I've had some terrific mentors along the way, even if they weren't, being forward in their mentorship, such as yourself, watching the way you conduct yourself. There's a reason you're in that Guelph Sports Hall of Fame, and there's a reason you're involved in sports generally, because I know that you believe in the power of sport.
Mike, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
It's just, it brings communities together. It gives people identity. It gives them, it touches their physicality, their spirituality, their mental well-being. Sport is such a cultural phenomenon, and it's a gift to communities if they can see it, if they unravel it and open the package to see it. And that's why you mentioned the Good Games. I was fortunate enough to get involved and invited because Helen, our CEO and founder, had this vision of putting sports at the adult competition level, but families festival together, and started it, and it's phenomenal. It's just phenomenal. Last year we had over 10,000 visitors coming. We had over 1,400 athletes coming internationally from Bolivia, Brazil, Hawaii, California, like most of our provinces in Canada. And to see that and to experience it is phenomenal. Just great.
How did you come to be involved in the Good Games?
It's funny. Thanks. Being a community fellow, I was invited to do a critique on the games. I did a critique, shared it with Helen, and within a short while she said, "Would you like to join the executive?" Helen, I'd be honored. And I'm blessed because the executive is just great teammates, just outstanding teammates who give back to the community. They're in all leadership positions. And so though I'm probably the veteran or the vintage, they keep me young. Their energy, their enthusiasm, their commitment. It's about, the legacy that you hand on. And so I've been refreshed and blessed to be part of that team.
So the Good Games happen annually now in and around Guelph, Wellington County.
Yeah, in Guelph. 3 years ago, we got a partnership with the University of Guelph. And this year, May 27th to 29th, we'll be at the university. We'll have registration in some sports is already filled. It's crazy how quickly people who've been want to come back. And I think it's funny, today is, I think it's National Tourism Day. And in every community, tourism is that economic engine that drives traffic and makes a community vibrant. And we come much richer when we bring other teams in and other cultures in. And so from that point of view, it's a great experience. And our registration is open, it's filling up. One of the things that's really unique that last year we learned was, I believe not only are we perhaps the largest on annual sports festival, but the festival piece is free. And so we say, how do we keep it free? Because it's very costly to operate the facilities and to bring in the variety of sports we do to help young people learn about sports. So we created the golf tournament as an avenue to take proceeds to keep this not-for-profit alive. And so that families in our area can come and bring their families for free for a weekend or half a day or whatever and just engage in sports.
I love it. And we'll talk more about that golf tournament. But just going back to the games, May 27th to 29th, as you mentioned, Jim, at the University of Guelph. I mean, could you have a better venue in the city to stage these games?
No place like it.
Right.
We're really lucky. And the universities come on, and Scott and Stu, they've just been phenomenal partners to assist Andrew from a facility management point of view. The collaboration is based on the commitment, and they've seen the power of this and what it can do. Earlier you were talking about Mark Carney and his transformational piece, but that's what sport does. It is transformational. So. Again, hosting, you've got a good idea when it keeps growing. It's like that ripple effect. We have pickleball professional bringing a provincial championship. We have tech ball bringing provincial. When people are bringing their provincial championships to you, I think we're on the right track.
Right. So there is definitely a high caliber of play during the games.
Right. And one of the key features, we transform one of the parking lots into a beach volleyball. And we have former Olympians coming. And that beach volleyball is just, it's kind of one of the marquee events for the good games. Besides arm wrestling, skipping, archery, just go on and on, dodgeball, disc golf, trail runs. I mean, we're north of 14 sports. And what we discovered is that often people in their 20s, 30s still have this desire to play and love to compete, but there was nothing out there for them. So I was inspired last year. We had walking soccer. We had a 94-year-old gentleman from Sarnia come to participate. The Oakville team had 7 players at a time, 28 players on the team, walking soccer. Like, wow. Talk about the value of movement. Talk about the value of mental well-being. Talk about the value of sportsmanship. Like, it's just combined.
Well, and we never really do, most of us anyway, lose that competitive spirit.
You really don't.
No.
There was a lady goalkeeper, 70-year-old, from California, San Diego, and she's on one of our promos for this year. Like, if you watch that clip, it's just like, it's been in this woman's being her whole life. How to do well, how to compete, how to be a great teammate, how to have fun. So how to let that inner athlete come out of you and say, man, this is great. And then the friendships that are built, and you know that from sport. My gosh, you have friends from your Pee-wee days. I mean, how many friends have you picked up just through Farwell for Hire?
Absolutely.
And they become pals and buddies forever. So, that's the power of sport.
They are called the Good Games. They'll happen at the University of Guelph later this month, 27th to 29th. But along with the games...
In June,
June 27th to 29th. That's right. June 27, 29, University of Guelph. And along with the games is that free family festival. We want to keep it that way. So I'm going to let you know how to get in on this golf tournament to help support the work that the Good Games continue to do. Stay with us. Jim Rooney on the executive for the Good Games in studio with us this morning on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. They are called the Good Games. They come up at the University of Guelph, June 27th to 29th. I encourage you to check the website, thegood.games, to learn more. Part of the Good Games, where we never get to lose our competitive spirit, we come out, we enjoy the games, we harness the power of sport, is a free family festival that's connected to the Good Games. Jim Rooney on the executive with the Good Games in studio with me this morning. What is available to families in and around the games themselves?
Well, Mike, we can say you can play sports, and a lot of the athletes do that. You can watch sports, so there's going to be unbelievable competitions to watch, or you can experience. So what's great from the festival point of view is you get all three, but also the festival includes the experiential piece, where a young person will be introduced from a provincial organization who'll bring a demonstration and have an experiential piece for the young person to try, whether it's golf, curling, archery, dodgeball. Last year we had cricket, and to watch young people who kind of horizon becomes international because it's perhaps not as a Canadian experience as they might have. Walk through that experience. That's the fun piece. And to see families engage in it and coming back, having a family come on a Saturday and a Sunday because they didn't complete their engagement piece, or, whether it's the Super Dogs to watch, whether it's tech ball, doesn't matter. So there's championship sporting experiences. There's places where you can engage yourself and learn about the sport, and that's what brings it together. Makes it exciting. And when you see the smile on kids' faces, it's wonderful. It's inspiring in itself, motivating.
So in an effort to keep this free for the families who want these experiences, which is great, introduce the youngsters to the sports. You never know where that's going to lead. The inaugural Good Games Golf Tournament coming up.
Well, and to piggyback on your comment, Mike, we want to keep the festival free because it's not for profit. And so Nick Fitzgibbon, who was one of our great sponsors locally, stepped up to the plate this year and decided to be our title sponsor. And the executive approved. So this year we're out at Vic Valley. Vic Valley has been part of the Good Games because we have a partnership using golf carts, and they get our sand when we're finished. So again, that kind of synergy happens. But so we're hosting it on in 3 weeks, 2 days, on the 30th of May. 10:30 registration, 11 o'clock lunch at Vic Valley, delicious. 1 o'clock shotgun start. Lots of prizes. This morning, the CHL sent me an autographed shirt from the what do you call it? The January, the Prospects tournament.
Right.
So people have jumped in. I've mentioned to you we have a number of former players coming to participate, but it's just a community coming together. The tournament hopefully will be fun, and it's to launch. The other purpose is not only to use some funds for the not-for-profit festival, but to be able to launch June as a Good Games month in the city of Guelph. So that piece is what we're pretty excited. And one thing, Mike, if I may, for any listener, put it this way, let's say, for the first 10 listeners who call, I'll give them my number, 226-500, and it's call 2255. 226-500-2255. If you call me, we'll give you a 20% discount. We're almost sold out, but we want to get this tournament sold out. And so for your listeners and friends who want to join us, and I need to say, there's people coming from Kitchener to play golf that day.
We cross the border into golf sometimes.
Mike, and our arms are open, Mike. Come on down.
I know they are.
I know they are. Our arms are open. Come on down. So,
all right. I'll remind you that number again, 226-500-2255. 226-500-2255. Give Jim a call, and he'll give you 20% off your foursome as they start to fill up the Good Games Golf Tourney, which is happening on May the 30th.
Great.
How many of your
CKGLAM Kitchener,
a Rogers radio station,
#1 for breaking news,
right back.
traffic, and weather.
And we'll be right back here. See, there we go. How many of your former players do you, like you mentioned, some are coming,
right?
You still keep up with?
Oh, 50,
too many. Yeah. Because those relationships.
Oh, well, you know what's really funny? How many of them go back to live in Guelph?
Sure.
Like, it's crazy how many are back. We must have a dozen at least. The Wilsies, the Longs, the Heights. Hyder still has a home. Power. Joe Gerby. Chris Madden. Like, there's just a ton have come back and basically adopted Guelph as home. The others we keep in touch with, like Sylvain Cloutier is down coaching in Texas. His team's in that junior final. So there's the spectrum of life. There's characters that you. The other day, Patty Barton had a birthday. Send him a note, Patty. How you doing? Dwayne Hay. There's a whole cluster of the coaches, for some former coaches. I see Hartsey all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And he was such a. I always say Hartsey. I think I had 2 instances with Mike Kelly. We said no. One was I said to him, if we want to take this to what it should be, we're going to get a professional coach. And Mike Bentby says, so we're not going to tell you who to get, Mike, but we want somebody who's been there, who's won a champ. We gave them the parameters. And now you go do, here's what we believe and know. So Hartsey was that first guy we brought. And wow.
Good Sault Ste. Marie boy, Craig Hartsburg.
Just down the road, though. Just down the road here.
That's right. That's right, yeah.
And he's such a, God, so I still see Hartsey in Florida. I see him in Florida more than I do up here, Mike.
Yeah, of course.
Unless, sadly, there's a funeral to go to.
But those connections, and you have developed and fostered, nurtured them all through sport.
Yeah, it really is. Just anyway, it's you never know where you're going to meet them or how you bump into them and where your life paths cross, and so it's always exciting, and it's great to see that. Well, I'll give you an example. Adam Dennison as a GM. I mean, I can go on and on about where guys are taking their career, to another level and then contributing back to the sport. When I lectured at Brock, in 2004, I had a kid who, 2004 was a lockout. He did his thesis on cap management. He got hired by Carolina. He's still there as a VP. Like, there's phenomenal stories. The kid who runs the Honda Indy, Chris Armstrong, I've known forever. Sorry, that's Jeff Atkins. Armstrong is with actually Seattle now. He was in golf, but there's a cadre of your character. Dubes. I had Dubas as a student at Brock.
Another great example. Yeah.
Who's talk about the roller coaster.
No kidding. He'll survive. He's got a knack. He's got a knack. I am glad our life paths crossed, Mr.
Me too.
Rudy.
I'm
this
so
is
grateful.
Great. Thanks
and
for
I love
everything
listening
you're doing.
to you, by the way.
I appreciate that. We love golf. We open up our arms for golf every day.
I know you do. and we're not going to have Larry anymore, so then that chapter is going to be just really different.
I feel sorry for the person that has to fill those shoes for sure, but they'll figure it out.
It's like the speaker who follows the child.
Exactly.
God, who wants to follow the kid?
Oh, boy. Jim Rooney is on the executive with The Good Games. I want to remind you the website, thegood.games. And if you want to golf, Jim's going to give you 20% off a foursome if you call him at 226-500-2255. Thanks so much for being here.
Pleasure, Mike. Thank you.
This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. Wednesday morning. That means in 30 minutes' time, Rob Deutschman is here, former regional councillor with political R&D, and we'll talk about the tightrope politicians are walking when it comes to helping those in our community who are struggling with addiction. And right after this update from the 570 News Center, Blue Jay Hunter is here to talk about what else? Blue Jays baseball. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
'77 was the Jays' first year. Toronto fans could finally cheer as Alt hit 2 home runs in our first game. Bob Baylor was number 1, Jerry Garvin's pickoff gun. Wins were few and the team was new, but the fans still came. They're talking baseball. Rick Cerrone and Louis Gomez. Blue Jays baseball. Ron Fairley, Hector Torres. Big John and Griff and Otto all could play. Roy Howell, Rico Cardi, Dave McKay. I'm talking baseball. 10 years with the Jays.
The Blue Jays version of our baseball song, ushering in another week with our good friend Ian Hunter, a.k.a. the Blue Jay Hunter. Good find on the musical choice today,
Thanks.
my friend.
It only took us how many years to get it to air?
It's because I had no idea it existed. Shame on
there's I was just reading up on it. The Terry Cashman did over 30 different versions of the song, one customized to every single team at the time. So it's there's some dated references in there of the 86 Toronto Blue Jays, but it's still I kind of prefer the original now that I've heard it week after week, and the Simpsons version, the Talkin' Softball, that's the other one. But yeah, I think I prefer the original.
Full disclosure, I've never seen an episode of The Simpsons.
Ever?
Never.
No.
Not one time.
Oh, Mike.
I mean, I figure in the next 30 years or so that it's still on, I could probably watch one.
If you're going to watch one episode, watch the Homer at Bat is the episode where they bring in it's an all-star team. Mr. Burns, he brings in an all-star team of the All-Stars at the MLB All-Stars at the time. And if you do watch one episode, please watch that one because it is worth your time.
Homer at the Bat.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll check it out maybe at some point if I get around to it because I don't know how I've avoided it all these years.
Yeah. Well, we've avoided playing this song for that many years. So
you got me thinking when you talked about dated references to the 1986 Blue Jays, etc. And I was chatting with a buddy the other day about the back-to-back World Series. And it feels, well, it was a long time ago, right? But this is where we're trying to get back to, and it has felt to me, Ian, as though for the past almost decade, like let's talk 2015, we were moving towards those glory days again. We just haven't been able to take that final step, or probably the final couple of steps.
Yeah, it did kind of feel right in the 2020, the COVID year, that kind of felt like, okay, they've got the stepping stones to become a perennial contender. And Bo Bichette had just come up. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. had just established himself. And they didn't make the playoffs in 2021, but they came awfully close. And it felt like, yeah, okay, this is the window of contention is wide open. They're going to be in the playoffs for the next, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years. And now that door, well, now that they've re-signed Vladimir Guerrero Jr., I don't feel like that door has closed. But a lot of that time they've frittered it away, right? And they've been to the postseason. They haven't won a postseason game. They haven't won a postseason series. There's not much to show for it. I think it just underscores how difficult it really is to not only make the playoffs every year, but make a deep run every single year. I mean, our friends, the Toronto Maple Leafs, know all about that in the National Hockey League. But yeah, it does. Even 2015, it felt like, oh yeah, that was a dynasty in the making. Well, that was almost 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
And people have kind of romanticized that era, like my generation romanticized, and yours too, the 92-93 team. So I don't know, in 10 years, are they going to be looking back at this Blue Jays team and thinking, oh man, Vlad, that was the best? I think they're going to think it was an opportunity missed.
Well, you talk about romanticizing that era 2015, about a decade ago, but I'm starting to romanticize that one just a little bit, because I guess we expected the kind of power that lineup delivered. But even as a guy that professes to be a lover of small ball, I'm waiting for this version of the Toronto Blue Jays. They brought Santander in for a reason. They've got Vlad Jr. They've got George Springer. Why are we not hitting home runs, Ian Hunter?
Yeah, I'm starting to realize that maybe this is who they are. Maybe they are just not. They're far removed from that slugging team of 2021, 2022, where they were top 5 in runs scored. They're now bottom 5 in runs scored, bottom 5 in home runs, even though they do have some sluggers in their lineup, like you said, like Santander and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. But outside of that, there's not a ton of offensive production, as we saw. I don't know if you saw any of the game last night. I decided to torture myself and watch the whole thing. But again, it was just another case where, okay, great, they scratched and clawed and they got 3 runs on the board, and Santander came up with a big home run late in the game, but ultimately it wasn't enough. They had so many opportunities. I think they were 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position and tons of guys left on base. So if you look at the score, at the box score, yeah, the bullpen blew the game, but it was another instance, third straight game now, where the bullpen, they were trying to ride this fine line and they had no breathing room because there was very little run support. So this is a disturbing trend. I'm not liking what I'm seeing these last couple of weeks.
The bottom line is you can't continue to put that kind of pressure on your bullpen, right?
No. I mean, so Brendan Little, he's already made 18 appearances on the season. I think that's the second most. Jimmy Garcia blew up last night. He blew up on Saturday. Prior to that, he had not given up any earned runs, and I think it was 13 consecutive games. Jeff Hoffman gave up a couple of home runs last night. So we're starting to see, we're only a month and change into the season. Like, you cannot consistently go to your high leverage relievers every single game. You need to, I said this last week, you got to have a laugher or two. You got to win some games by like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 runs. And the Blue Jays just haven't had that. I think I put out on Twitter this morning that the Jays, 11 of their 16 wins have been by 2 or fewer runs. So you think about that, you're relying on your Jeff Hoffman, Jimmy Garcia, Brendan Little, Chad Green in most of those cases. And you can't keep riding those guys all the time because eventually their arms are going to give out.
Ian Hunter is the Blue Jay Hunter. He joins us every Wednesday morning at 11 to talk some Blue Jays baseball. I have a bright side to this. I do, and we'll talk about it as we continue on the Mike Farwell Show this morning. You're welcome to join the Blue Jays conversation here on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. All right, well, leave it to me to be Mr. Positive over here. That never happens on this show. We continue with Ian Hunter, the Blue Jay Hunter, on the program. Ian joins us every Wednesday morning at 11. Look, the Blue Jays are struggling to score runs, Ian. We talked about the unnecessary pressure they're putting on their bullpen. But it is May the 7th, and they're only 3.5 games out.
Yeah.
Come on.
That's true. I mean, nobody's really running away with a division. The Jays are, 3.5 back of the division lead.
Yeah. See?
And they have the third. They're not the worst in the division. They're not 13-21 like the Orioles.
But this is the other thing. And okay, let's just quickly touch on the Orioles. Much more was expected of them this year, for sure.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So I wonder what they're talking about on Baltimore radio this morning.
They're probably saying, the sky's falling and fire everyone in the front office, fire the manager. But yeah, that's the thing. Nobody's pleased with the 16-19 record, but at this juncture, the division has not gotten away from them. So they still have time. It's been a rough 3-game stretch, but they've been in all these games, right? Like a little last night, if there was a critical play where there was a bunt play where Kirk tried to throw the ball down to third base and Clement missed the throw and that was an error. If they get that play, maybe we're having a different conversation today. But it's just, I keep coming back to the fact that if you're not scoring a ton of runs, every single tiny little mistake is amplified that much more. So, yeah, they're still in these games for the most part, but they got to start scoring more than 5 runs because it's tough to watch.
Well, and this lineup should be capable of scoring more than 5 runs.
You would think. I mean, given that Anthony Santander had 44 home runs last year, although Buck Martinez mentioned this on the broadcast last night. At this juncture last year, he had the same amount of home runs, 5 home runs. So maybe he's going to turn it on in the month of May and June and July. Who knows? But yeah, when on paper you see all the talent that they have, especially at the top of the order, you would think that they should be at least 3 games over 500. But they're not. They haven't dug themselves so deep that they can't get out of this thing.
That's the thing that struck me when I looked at the standings this morning. But here's the other thing. So the Jays are 3.5 out in the division because, as you mentioned, nobody's running away with it. The Yankees lead at 4 games over 500, 20-16. The rest of the division, Ian, is under 500. This is the American League East. What happened?
I know. I think going into this season, every year we always talk about, this is the most competitive division in baseball. And it's kind of become the weaker sibling of all the divisions. Like most of the strongest, I think I saw 5 of the 6 strongest teams are in the National League this year. So yeah, it is odd. Everyone's kind of hovering around 500 in the East, which is, if you're the Jays, you're fine with that because I think at this point last year, the Yankees were way out in front and they just, and the Orioles too were, both of them never looked back. So the Blue Jays have the benefit of time, not making excuses for them as well, but they had a bit of a rougher schedule in the month of April. They were facing a lot of playoff teams, a lot of strong teams, and interdivisional games out of the gate. So, you would think the Angels are not a great team, but the Blue Jays definitely should be playing up to their talent level, and hopefully they come back with a win today.
Is our value for $15 million for Max Scherzer going to be dugout antics, flipping coins when it comes to ball and strike calls from umpires?
It's kind of, I always find it weird when a player that you haven't seen or that's on the injured list and who's rehabbing suddenly shows up in the dugout and you think, oh, well, maybe they're on their way back, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Again, a bit of a vague update on Max Scherzer. We don't know when or if he's going to return. We're now into the month of May. I don't know. Maybe we see him in a month or a month and a half. I don't want to be pessimistic, but I think if we see him before the All-Star break, I would be shocked. It might not be till mid-July, but yeah, that's, I don't know. I think at this point, you kind of have to just assume that $15 million is gone. And if you get anything at all from Max Scherzer, that is a bonus at this point.
I can do dugout antics for $5 million a year.
Sure.
If that's what we're looking for.
Yeah,
here.
it's at that point you're relegated to become a cheerleader.
Exactly.
Right? So I guess the good thing is that at 40 plus years old, he has a lot of experience. And he can kind of lend his ear as maybe like a pseudo coach down there. Maybe that's what he's there for. But yeah, it's unfortunate. He's only got 3 innings under his belt this year, and hopefully we see him before the All-Star break. But like I said, I would be shocked if we do.
His antics seemed to be enjoyed by fans, again, as he's flipping a coin, to poke fun at the umpire who may have flipped a coin before deciding balls and strikes. In that particular game, Scherzer wasn't far off the mark. The strike zone was a little bit wild, to say the least. A game like that only amplifies the calls for robo-umps, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm kind of, I have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I'm a bit old school. I still like to have the human element there, but I didn't mind in the spring training when they referred to the automatic balls and strikes system where they could challenge the call on the spot and look and see. And I thought it actually worked pretty well. So I'm kind of in favor of that coming in. I don't foresee a scenario where we get to complete the human element is gone 100%. But I think we're going to be leaning more and more into technology as the years go by. Baseball is such a traditional sport, right? It's very slow to adapt. We very rarely see changes. So this may be a few years off the mark still, but I think if you ask players, I think they would probably be in favor of it.
Of robo-umps?
Yeah.
Because they want the consistency.
I think so. And you just see, the umpires are now accountable. There's Twitter accounts that you can go on the day after the game and see all the missed calls, right? So I think we all realize everyone makes mistakes. Nobody's going to be perfect. But when certain calls are very egregious and you can tell that one team is getting advantage over another, that's where people's eyebrows start to raise a little bit. So, yeah, it puts a little more accountability on the umpires.
I have no idea how they do what they do, quite frankly, because I once had the opportunity to sit in what back in the day I called Uncle Ted's seats. There were tickets that used to come around way back in the day at the radio station, and they were right behind home plate. And all you could see was the pitcher winding up and then hear the smack of the catcher's glove. I never saw the ball.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those, if you had to sit behind home plate and call balls and strikes, would you be able to?
Not a chance.
I like Max Scherzer, I would probably flip a coin and say, okay, that was a ball, I guess. I don't know, because not only do you have to go inside and outside, you have to call high and low. So yeah, I think if we had to go to umpire school, I think it would be quite an eye-opening experience for a lot of fans.
I would also buy the catcher every game a steak dinner, because if they miss those pitches, right, you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, maybe after the game they slip them a keg gift card, say, hey, sorry guys, I messed that one up.
Ian, let's hope that we have some offense found by your return next week.
Let's hope. It seems to be polar opposite, so maybe by next week they'll bring out the big bats.
Thanks for being here this morning, buddy.
You're welcome.
Ian Hunter, the Blue Jay Hunter, joins us every Wednesday morning at 11 on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Fast approaching 11:30, your update in the 570 News Center. And then noon until 1, open phone lines so we can talk directly to you, hear directly from you during the Talkback Hour. So if you've got something on your mind that you just need to share, you can certainly do it in the next 60 minutes between noon and 1. Immediately after this update from the 570 News Center, it is our new weekly segment, Wednesday mornings, 11:30, something we call Political R&D. The R for Rob, the D for Deutschman. Rob's got some extensive municipal political experience, having been the mayor in North Dumfries Township and also a former regional councillor. He ran provincially recently as well. So Rob brings all of that experience to the conversation every Wednesday morning at 11:30. And this morning, when we talk to Rob next, it's going to be about that political tightrope that politicians are walking when it comes to helping people in the throes of addiction and meeting the needs of the community. How do we balance that? We'll talk about it with Rob Deutschman coming up. Political R&D on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Some Chris Stapleton to start political R&D with Rob Deutschman this morning. Rob joins us every Wednesday morning, 11:30 for political R&D. You see the R for Rob, the D for Deutschman, and he makes his own requests as well. Robert, good morning.
Hey, you gotta look up Chris Stapleton and the national anthem. I don't know if you've ever seen that, Mike. He does a solo on the guitar, and it's at I forget which football game it's at, a Super Bowl game, and brought tears to the players' eyes. It's fantastic.
Really? I don't think I have seen that. I love Chris Stapleton's work. Okay.
You'll love it. But anyway.
I will. I think you chose that deliberately, this whole notion of starting over.
Starting over, yeah, and plans and everything else. It made me think of that. I just want to say I'm calling in today because I'm in Prince Edward County today. And we have a place out here, and I'm sort of in two worlds. And at a future date, we're going to have to talk about the strong mayor stuff and a recent motion that was brought in Prince Edward County, which was a vote of non-confidence in the mayor. As well, I also want to point out, Mike, a population of 26,000 and 16 councillors, which is on average about 1,600 people per counselor. So we're getting about 10 times the deal in Marley region.
Settle down. 16 counselors for 26,000 people. Come on. They like to break the municipal budgets there, do they, Rob?
Oh, yeah, I don't even want to talk about that. Well, that's a future date.
It is.
So listen, today we're talking about, I listened to you the other day with your, you interviewed the lady, I think it was from the Legal Network or some legal group, and we were talking about the consumption treatment side, and we know we've had the recent court decision on that issue. And there was this sort of sentiment about how do you judge success in the face of these things, and what is success? And so I thought that kind of triggered me to want to chat about consumption treatment site and what is success from the local municipal perspective.
Yeah, and we know that Regional Councillor Pam Wolf brought forward a motion that was defeated. She was hoping to have a letter sent to the province advocating that we keep our CTS site open.
That's way down the line. We got to go back to the beginning, Mike. So
what's the beginning?
The beginning is, how do we end up with a CTS? Why is CTS, right? And in fact, the consumption treatment site has had many variations, many names. It was called SCS, Safe Consumption Site, Consumption Treatment Site. There always seems to be, there's a bit of a political aspect to these sites because there's obviously a concern where one is placed in the neighborhood. But you got to go right back to the initial, how do you know where you're going to put a CTS? And public health will track. So prior to the CTS being set up, public health would track where are the areas in your community where you have a high rate or high number of overdoses occurring, okay? So we acknowledge that it's happening throughout the whole of our community, but there's going to be certain areas in our community where there's going to be a higher incident rate than in others. And in Waterloo Region, two of the what we'll call red zones, because on the map it was displayed as a large red dot, so to speak, we'll call them red zones, downtown Kitchener and downtown Gulf were the two most significant areas. So when you've got an area that's a hot spot, you're saying, what am I doing to address that area? What am I doing to address that issue? And the consumption treatment site is a method, an approach to resolving, trying to work on the high number of overdoses that are occurring in certain areas. A consumption treatment site is not the answer to the whole of the community. So when you're talking about success, the success is rated by how is the consumption treatment site, first of all, how is it accepted within the community? And is it doing the job to deal with the high incidence of overdoses in the area where it's placed? And by every metric, the CTS in Kitchener was a success.
Okay, hang on. Let me interject there. I love the data-driven approach. It makes perfect sense. But if one of the metrics of success that you just talk about is how it's accepted by the community, I would submit to you, Rob, that it wasn't. I've talked to so many people.
I've heard you say that.
Yeah, and well, do you think it was? Honestly?
Absolutely. When first of all, the daycare across the road had absolutely no problem.
Okay, but that's
with the consumption treatment site. Let me finish. We're going through this. We're not here to debate, argue back and forth.
Well, no, but I do dispute the point that it was accepted by the community. That's all.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, you can dispute it. I know differently because I was there. We had consultations. We had numerous delegations to council. For example, Stephanie Stretch, who you know, Councillor Stretch.
Yep.
Before she was on council, she was, lived in the area, and she presented to regional council and pointed out that prior to the consumption treatment site being set up in that area, there were a large number of issues and concerns with respect to overdoses, needles, et cetera, in the area. And after the CTS was set up, the incidence declined significantly of needles in the area because the CTS is working with groups like WINS, which is a group that will go around and collect whatever needles or paraphernalia would be around. And that was being reduced. There was success with that. And the number of overdoses, Mike, that were reversed, let's take it from an economic perspective, okay? So the number of overdoses reversed at the CTS from the time it was put in till it closed was over 1,100. If you put a dollar value on that, and the city of Calgary actually did a study and said every reversal saved the community about $1,600 because every time there's an overdose and it's reported to emergency services, you have police, paramedics, and fire responding. While the overdoses at the CTS are taken care of by staff, so you don't have that. So $1,600, that's almost $2 million in savings from an economic argument in terms of the reversals. So now what happens is you close the CTS, and so you extend that out, you're going to get a heart hub, and like harm reduction and treatment go together. You need both. It's not an either or. It's a this and that situation. Where sometimes the debate goes off the rails a bit is whether it's forced treatment or when someone's ready for treatment. And we can talk about that after the commercial break. But now that the CTS is closed, from the local tax base, every time there's a report of an overdose at a bus shelter or a back alley or a park, you're having all the emergency services responding. The municipality is paying for that, whereas before, with a CTS, the province was paying for it. So now there's an additional cost. Plus, all of those people that are picked up by paramedics are brought to the hospital, and what's the wait time there? And now beds are being occupied. And that's an additional cost to the community. So if you want to measure success, by many metrics, it was very successful.
I hear you, and absolutely not a single life lost. All those overdoses reversed. The economic argument, I'm here for it. I get it. But and I agree. Like I remember Stephanie Stretch's support for this as a counselor prior to it, and that's a great voice to have. But I can also tell you, Rob, that I heard from somebody that used to live in the area, moved out of the area when the CTS opened, and another lovely listener to our show by the name of Diane, who repeatedly would email me and say she lives down Victoria Street, but doesn't feel safe, never felt safe walking in the Duke and Victoria area because the CTS site was there. That impacted her community life. And those are the stories that I hear.
Yeah. No, for sure. There's people there are going to be some that will have some difficulties, but the situation before the CTS and the situation after the CTS was measurably better.
Okay. All right. We'll get into...
That's the point, because it's almost like you don't have anything when you're a red zone. That's why it's identified as a red zone. And then look what happened with respect to Cambridge. A holding bylaw was put in place for 2 years. We could never implement a CTS in downtown Galt. And Galt was a difficult area, downtown Galt, for a long period of time.
We're in conversation with Rob Deutschman, who joins us every Wednesday morning at 11:30 for Political R&D. He's got the experience from around the council horseshoes and even running provincially. And we'll continue this conversation about getting harm reduction and treatment. They go hand in hand when it comes to dealing with the addictions crisis. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Wednesday mornings, 11:30. Rob Deutschman with us, former regional councillor, former mayor of North Dumfries, political R&D, the R for Rob, the D for Deutschman. So you said, Rob, after the commercial break, we can get into the conversation about voluntary versus involuntary treatment,
Right.
which I think is an important part of this.
Oh, absolutely, Mike. And it's interesting, too, because that also speaks to the heart hubs that the province is setting up. So they've taken away the harm reduction part of it and have focused on the heart hubs. And, you know, I did last year, so I forget now, I did a town hall on the issue of drug treatment and what's out there, and spoke to a number of experts actually from across the country. And you do find that there are some academics, particularly, the people I spoke to were in Alberta, that were advocating the forced treatment model. And it seems like there's some movement that way, perhaps in BC, Alberta. And, you know, Mike, the only thing I'll say is this, is that those that advocate for forced treatment and those that do not, ultimately everybody wants to get to the same spot, which is treatment for people that have drug addiction. The issue, though, is how do you get there? And I think you'll have to leave it up to individuals to decide whether you think you can force someone with an addiction to get better or not. My analogy always was, well, people who smoke, how many people have a January 1 resolution that I'm not going to smoke again, and by, I don't know, the end of the day or the end of the week, how'd that resolution go? Addiction is difficult. So so what happens is we have the heart hub here, and I don't think it's funded yet. So that's another issue which is curious. Why are we not funded yet, or perhaps it is set up, but it's taken a little while. So the issue then is we had the injunction recently. So the court's taken a look at it. Some advocacy groups have said, hey, this is going to harm people, and the courts have looked at the preliminary information and the submissions and issued a temporary injunction to say, hey, you got to keep these things open. The problem, of course, was there was no funding, and it's multi-layered in terms of government approvals. You need federal government approval, and that expires after a certain period of time as well. So clearly there's an issue about potential harm to individuals just on a treatment-only basis without the harm reduction part of it. And just take a look at the recent warning we received in the news about 5 more overdose deaths. But if you looked at the article, it specifically pointed out when we had the CTS, we could test the drugs to see what it was that was circulating in the community. Now we don't even know because we don't have that capability. So Councillor Wolf brought forward a resolution to say, could we ask the province to fund the CTS for the period of the injunction? That was it, just a period of injunction. So if the court says, hey, you got to leave them open, obviously we need funding. And there was a real freeze. I think a concern about any repercussion from the province with respect to the Heart Hub and funding for that. And it basically froze council from asking for that funding. And so it didn't go through, which is unfortunate. But I think it also speaks to, Mike, this notion, and you've heard it from various local municipal politicians, is, provide us with the funding. Don't put on, any restrictions. Don't tell us about your pet projects or what you want from a province-wide basis. Let us, at the municipal level, the people who know what they need for their own community, living in their community, and every community is different from, the north to the south, the east to the west, and let each individual area decide what they think it best suits their community. And that's sort of the unfortunate part of this. It gets a little bit politicized. And especially on the issue of forced or volunteer treatment. And it's that politicization that really hurts. I think it hurts the community overall.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And just on the point of the motion and the concern about advocating to keep the CTS open, this speaks to, albeit tangentially, how the province in some ways holds municipalities hostage. Well, you follow our lead or you're not going to get the funding.
Well, and it goes back to, the municipalities are a creature of the province, and so So what do we see? We see the province acting in certain ways, and a lot of times people will characterize, the actions of Doug Ford are in relation to his experience and his brother's experience when he was the mayor of Toronto. And so some of the actions that get taken there and they get extended out to the rest of us just seems to be cover sometimes for what is being done in Toronto. And, it makes it very difficult. And we've seen, as you know, through talking to various councillors, and you and I have had this discussion about the downloading of services on municipalities, and the property tax now becomes the funding source for a lot of provincial initiatives, which it was never intended for. And it puts more and more pressure on us. And you'll see, we'll talk at a future date. Michael Harris is bringing forward a motion for, I think, limiting property tax increases to 5%. And clearly, everybody wants to lower them as much as possible. But what is the implication of that? What services are being cut? Like cut some library hours, and you'll have people storming the doors. But
No, I get it, and it's the real balancing act. So just before I let you go, Rob, let's kind of tie a bow on this whole idea of how we as communities are dealing with the addictions crisis. We know that it can't be handled municipally, certainly through funding. We need more funding for the treatment that I think many people are advocating for. Look, Violet Humanet, Chris Steingart, those that work through Sanguine Health, right? They do great work, and we admire them so much, and my hat's off to them. But I'm not sure, Rob, in all honesty, the folks that you heard delegating at council meetings and that you hear advocating for CTS sites, et cetera, are the same people I'm hearing from on this show. And I don't know how we balance that. I really don't.
Well, it's interesting. Your audience is, like you see a lot of people that advocate at council, Gen Z or whatever, a lot of young people, a lot of people that are frontline working on this issue day in and day out. And so they have the lived experience and they come out and advocate. But, I just want to say a couple of things, Mike. My friend Sarah Escobar in meetings will tell you, this is a problem that's decades in the making.
Yes.
Decades in the making. And it's not going to be resolved by writing a check and waving a magic wand. And people like Michael Parkinson, who are, in our local region, but are experts in this area on policy, noted experts across the country, or by people across the country, will tell us that we don't really have a local drug strategy in place. And that is probably where we need to take a look at it and try to improve on that. And I know his group that they're trying to start up, the drug strategy team, is trying to advocate as best they can, and he's very active on a lot of these issues. But we don't have a sort of overall drug strategy approach here that I think we need to work on as a community, and then say what funding we can get. But again, it's so politicized. This is why all we can do is things like harm reduction is basically putting patches on the dam so that we can get the dam fixed. The dam fixed.
I was thinking the same thing. Fix the dam. Rob,
the ding-dang dam.
The ding-dang dam, exactly. Appreciate you making the time, even from Prince Edward County this morning, and we'll continue the conversations a week from now.
Yeah, take care, Mike.
You too. Bye-bye. Rob Deutschman, Political R&D, every Wednesday morning, 11:30, here on The Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I just got the nicest note from Barbara to Mike at 570news.com. Morning, Mike. You make good cookies. Barbara might be the only person that's ever said that, but apparently I do. I just picked up some chocolate hat trick shortbread at Dana Short. Happy to support your fundraiser. Barbara, thank you for that. You can be like Barbara and visit Dana Short Gourmet and Gifts on Herb Street in Waterloo. I was there last Thursday, the 1st of May. My very first Farwell for Hire job was making the hat trick shortbread cookies. 3 different kinds of chips in there. Oh, yeah. They are delicious. I promise you that. And I did help to make them. I didn't have much to do with the dough. I just got them onto a sheet and into the oven and then packaged them. But hey, come on. We leave the real good baking to the experts, or the ingredients and the creation of the recipe. And then we get them into the oven and we put them in a bag and we get them on the shelves of Dana Short Gourmet for you And when you buy a bag of Hat Trick shortbread cookies with 3 different kinds of chips, hence the Hat Trick, right? You are supporting Farwell for Hire because a portion of proceeds from every sale of those Hat Trick shortbread cookies at Dana Short are being donated to cystic fibrosis research through Farwell for Hire. What a tasty way to fundraise. The Hat Trick shortbread cookies at Dana Short. Thank you, Barbara, for going and picking some up and sending the note to say how much you enjoyed them. I'm going to send you to the 570 News Center for your noon update, and then I'm going to open up the phone lines. I mean, they're open all day anyway, but this is an hour devoted to you where you get the chance to tell us what's on your mind. Talkback begins right after this update on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage outside, or you don't go out Friday night.
Don't talk back.
Phone lines are open to you so that you can talk back to us here on the program. 519-570-2545. Star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. As you no doubt know, because we've talked about it on the show, both Waterloo and Kitchener have decided that the best approach to dealing with all of the complaints they hear about fireworks is to ban their sale in the cities beginning in January of next year. So about 9 months from now, a little less than, there will be no more fireworks sales in the cities of Waterloo or Kitchener. That will, the cities believe, give fireworks vendors the opportunity to exhaust their inventory and educate the public about the changes that are to come. I was eavesdropping on the meetings in both Waterloo and Kitchener as they discussed this ban. And here is one of the things we heard from Waterloo. And let me be clear up front. Councillor Julie Wright, who you're about to hear from, I cannot even imagine how she feels in this discussion because she was the councillor that was shot in the face with a firecracker after Canada Day celebrations last year in Waterloo. And just imagine the irony. Waterloo celebrated Canada Day with a drone show. On her way home from a drone show, she is shot in the face with a firecracker and had this to say at Waterloo's council meeting.
I am one of the people that was affected last July after being shot in the face intentionally with fireworks. So I strongly believe that we need some certainty and regulation around the use of fireworks.
The thing that strikes me about that, and again, I can't even imagine Councillor Wright's position on this, having suffered that. But we do have, like, the regulations do exist around shooting fireworks at somebody. The individual who shot the firework at Councillor Wright was arrested and charged. So are we just not enforcing the rules that we have? Councillor Dave Schneider in Kitchener, I thought, made an interesting point in Kitchener's discussion about it.
And I've got concerns that we're taking away a joy, a Canada Day, a Victoria Day, a Diwali tradition to try and stop some of the delinquent usage that we're seeing. So as much as I want to see that end, I don't know that this is a way to do it.
You ban the sale of fireworks within your city, but they can still be obtained by other means, right? Currently, because Cambridge is not yet there with legislation, you could buy them in Cambridge, for example, and then just set them off in Kitchener or in Waterloo. Delegate in Kitchener, Tom Jacobs, I thought made a point. I mean, I can certainly subscribe to this idea.
We all do activities in our society that someone won't like. I have a parade that goes by my house early in the morning once a year, and I don't like it because I work late and I'm trying to sleep, but I don't complain about it because it's occasional. I think if we kept fireworks occasional to the days that they are supposed to happen on, then we wouldn't have these issues, right? Would anyone complain about 3-4 times a year? So we have to eradicate and have stronger penalties and make it known that we do have these penalties so we can stop usage outside of when we want it.
There are 365 days in a year. Cities allow generally these days about 3 of those days to be used for fireworks. Even if you abuse the days of usage, really, out of 365 days, how many days is it that we're being asked to deal with the noise of fireworks and the nuisance that comes with them? I don't know. I certainly lean Tom Jacobs' way on all of this, but that's the ongoing fireworks discussion. Also, some fireworks set off of the figurative variety when Prime Minister Carney described President Trump this way at their meeting yesterday.
Thank you for your hospitality and above all for your leadership. You're a transformational president, focus on the economy with a relentless focus on the American worker, securing your borders, ending the scourge of fentanyl and other opioids, and securing the world. And I've been elected with my colleagues here, with the help of my colleagues here, I'm going to spread the credit, to transform Canada with a similar focus on the economy, securing our borders, again on fentanyl, much greater focus on defense and security, securing the Arctic and developing the Arctic. And the history of Canada and the U.S. is we're stronger when we work together, and there's many opportunities to work together, and I look forward to addressing some of those issues that we have, but also finding those areas of mutual cooperation so we can move forward.
A transformational president. That's what Prime Minister Carney calls Donald Trump. And that set off some fireworks yesterday, figuratively, of course. And just to go back on the fireworks note, I made this comparison yesterday. Not everybody loved it, but listen, we're talking about banning the sale of fireworks because some people cannot be trusted to use them responsibly. Yet, day after day, week after week, year after year, we have people driving impaired, and we don't ban the sale of automobiles. And wouldn't you know, just as I was listening to Mark Carney call Donald Trump a transformational president, I received the following from Brant OPP. On Tuesday, May 6th, at approximately 3:20 p.m. in the afternoon, this is midday, members of the Brant County, Ontario Provincial Police responded to a report of an erratic driver, possibly impaired, traveling along Highway 403. There you go. Officers, upon pulling the vehicle over, did observe signs of impairment. Look at that. But you can still buy a car. Just some thoughts from over here. I want to hear your thoughts on the Talkback Hour. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. The whole point of the Talkback Hour is to hear your voice. So let's get to the phones. Andre is going to start us off. Good afternoon, Andre.
Come on, Lucy Okus. I'm walking Lucy. She's on the leash. Hi, Mike. Just to continue on the fireworks quickly, it kind of reminds me a bit of the pumpkin pies that some rotten apples, idiots that throw them off the bridges. So should we ban also Halloween?
Wait a minute. Who throws pumpkin pies off bridges?
I heard it on the news.
Pumpkin pie? Why would anybody do that to a pumpkin pie?
Pumpkin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like some idiot.
I'll tell you what, I'll find the people throwing the pumpkin pies off the bridge, and I'll be standing down beneath catching them all. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah. So back to what I want to call, and this is to Liberal Bob. In the past, I voted for Liberal, and for the last 9 years, I don't, we know what happened. And with Corny, whatever. So
wait. With Corny? What do you mean? You don't think things are going to change with Mark Carney leading the party now?
No, I think he's part of Trudeau's very smart.
Gotcha.
Very smart. The only thing I don't like him is because he hasn't been transparent like your show.
Same party, different leader. I gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So about Conservator that I listened in the afternoon with Rob Snow, very smart person like you, and Conservatives are very confused. And that's why, to make it quick for other people, I didn't vote it because
You didn't vote. You didn't
No, I
vote
didn't
what?
vote because I'm very confused.
You didn't vote at
I'm not
all?
allowed to complain.
Wait, Andre, you didn't vote at all?
No.
Oh gosh, I'm going to hang up right there. Tisk, tisk, young man. Tisk, tisk, not voting at all. Speaking of confused conservatives, though, can we take a moment to acknowledge the return of Andrew Scheer as the leader of the Conservative Party? What, was the wet paper bag busy? What are we doing here? Or maybe, just maybe, you know what? Pierre Poilievre may have been born at night, but he wasn't born last night. Smart guy. He doesn't want anybody in the interim leader's position to be too charismatic or too quick on his feet or too good. He doesn't want the person in the interim role to do the job too well so that when he wins that by-election in Alberta and slides back into the leadership, he still looks like the savior of the party. And the numbers do, like, man, did he increase support. He increased the overall vote. He increased the number of seats, but he couldn't win his own. What a wild election this was. But Andrew Scheer, the interim leader of the Conservative Party. Why? Why? I don't understand that choice at all. But hey, I'm not the one making the decision. It was the Conservative caucus that did that. Grant, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Yeah, I didn't vote either because Mike wasn't on the voting ballot. You should have went.
Wait a minute. You're telling me that you also did not vote in this federal election?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Why? What is the matter with you people?
Well, I wanted to watch my Ranger game, and I thought, no, I'd rather watch that than.
But Grant, you had all day. The polls opened at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, well, my anxiety gives me a little bit of difficulty in that area, and I just Mike's not on the ballot. I want to vote for someone that's going to do something for us, Mr. Resilience, right? Like Mary said. I'm going back to yesterday's call from Mary. You probably don't go to church, and that's fine and dandy. But you know what? You should read something that will lift your spirits. You're lucky because you can go to work and forget about your problems. And
my problems are at work. This is my problem right here.
Well, well, I think you know what I mean when I
do
say that you. Yeah. So, this program that I was listening to a number of weeks ago, they were talking about people that have anxiety, and it's difficult for them to maneuver around. Yeah, and they're not wrong. And I was just speaking to my music teacher yesterday, and she does some type of therapy.
Does your music teacher come to you, or do you go to her?
I do it over Zoom.
Okay, over Zoom for the music teacher. And listen, I feel for Grant because he's talked about that anxiety before and how paralyzing it can be. I'm very disappointed, though. Back-to-back callers who said they did not vote in the last federal election, which was a week ago, by the way. But should we have a Farwell show rule? If you didn't vote, don't call my ding-dang show. I want to talk to you. That would be unkind, right? Would that be unfair? Would that be anti-democratic? Vote, for crying out loud. What's the matter with you? Don't vote. Oy, come on with your coming on. It's Talkback on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Thank you, Annie. Thank you for the email to mike@570news.com. The two people who complained the most did not vote! ! Andre, Grant, regular callers, and complainers on the show did not vote. By the way, Ann's email continues. There is voting by mail. I don't want to hear griping from people who did not vote. You can choose not to vote, but then be quiet. Oh, and I kind of feel similarly, though. We might have to put Andre and Grant in the penalty box for a while. We'll see. Talkback continues with Kyle. Good afternoon, Kyle.
I voted. I voted the advance on the provincial. I voted not advanced, but I went the day of voting for federal. So
good man. You're welcome on this show anytime.
I have a right to complain if I need to complain, but those two should not complain anymore. I agree with Annie. I mean, if you didn't vote, you have no say in this, man. If you can't complain on Carney, you can't complain on Polyev, you can't complain on any NDP, you can't complain on anything. Like, you didn't go and vote. There's ways to vote. Like Annie said, you could put your mail in. They help you if you have a disability. They definitely help you even vote that way. My dad has seen it because he was telling me all the different ways they do it in Niagara. So there's different ways. And I just got to say one more thing. Mike, you're a Toronto fan. I saw the video of Wall getting, in quotes, elbowed. What kind of elbow do you expect to get hit from? Because I thought it was a little, you guys are all calling about this elbow and the guy should, whatever it was. I looked at that.
He should be kicked out of the league. He should never play hockey again. Settle down.
Like, are we watching soccer here? Are we playing hockey?
Wow.
What today?
Listen, I don't make the rules. I don't make the rule of law, Kyle. If you got to follow the rules, buddy.
Right. So if you get elbowed, it's actually a 2-minute minor. It's not a suspension.
Except when you do it to a goaltender. We protect goaltenders like we protect quarterbacks in football. Stop it.
There was barely a tap today.
Barely a tap.
Today, what you get is barely a 5-on-5. In the 90s and early 2000s, you get a line brawl after that. Today, you're lucky you even get a face wash. So like I said, are we watching soccer? Are we playing hockey? And if we're playing hockey, boys, you better play hockey, not this, he needs a suspension for barely touching the goalie. It was barely, I didn't even notice it, to be honest.
Settle down.
It was like watching a drama show on TLC.
Okay.
Thanks there, Mike.
Yeah. Okay, Kyle.
Shut up. Shut up. You don't tell me shut up. I tell you shut up.
That's it for Kyle this afternoon. And it was Stolarz, by the way, that got forearm shivered to the head by dirty bird Sam Bennett, who should never play hockey again. I'm going to be honest with you because it's the only way I know how to be. I think it was actually the slap shot that hit Stolarz in the mask earlier in the game that did the most damage. It was not the most vicious forearm or elbow I've ever seen. But I'm going to stand up for my team. I'm going to hang up the phone on Kyle, and I am going to tell him to...
2 things, okay? Shut up.
We are in the midst of the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour, and it continues right after this update from the 570 News Center on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio. It is your Talkback Hour. Love hearing your voice. Let's get right back to the phones. Ernie, good afternoon.
Mikey, what are your Steelers doing?
I have no idea. They're trying to find a real quarterback that's not dead yet.
Well, you just got rid of your best wide receiver, like arguably one of the top 5 in the league.
Why did we do that?
I'm guessing locker room stuff. That's the only thing that comes to mind. I don't know why, but I'm okay with it. I'm glad they let him go.
Yeah, of course you are, because that means it's all the more time for your Baltimore Ravens to manage the division.
Right, and a couple more points just about everything that's going on. I thought the meeting yesterday was actually not too bad between...
Carney and Trump, yeah.
I like the name Corny, even though my brother's name is Corny. But I just found it a bit weird from the biggest threat in a Canadian lifetime. I don't. It just didn't feel like that to me. I don't know. Like maybe I'm not used to. Like I thought, like World War II might have been bigger than this big threat that we're facing. I'm kind of feel like I got a little bit duped, or Canadians got a little bit duped with that. But that's just my opinion on that. And the other recommendation I want to give you, Mike, for Farwell for hire, please, Mike, take an hour out of your show, have it on Rogers TV, get in that dunk tank, Mike. You'll have people lined up.
Settle down. Yeah, you'll be first in line too, won't you?
Mike, I'll come for sure. I'll bring Grant and Mary and everybody else with me. And I think we'll have a good time. We'll give you some money.
Yeah, it'll be a good time for you.
Mike, go Leafers.
Thanks, buddy. Good to hear from you. There is something. I'll give you a little heads up here. What's today? Wednesday. Friday morning. So I'm gonna do fundraising right on the air that anybody can participate in, and you'll find out how on Friday morning at 9:15. So put a pin in it. Set the alarm on your phone or whatever you need to do to be here Friday morning, 9:15. I'm not getting in a dunk tank, but it's a way. and I think kind of a fun way, that you could be directly involved in fundraising. If you don't buy a 50-50 ticket at cf5050.ca, or you go to Dana Short Gourmet and Gifts and buy some hat trick shortbread cookies. Oh, they're so good. And a portion of proceeds from every sale comes to the campaign. It's awesome stuff. George, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mike. I want to talk about Mark Carney.
Sure.
Even though I give him a C rating, he did okay. Mike, I felt he could have done so much more. He could have been encouraging Mr. Trump about the strong coalition that we have, the economy that we could build to rival that of China and Europe, working together to make both countries strong and where jobs are available, enhancing, new companies, give them incentives to come to North America. So stuff like that. I think he could have really built it, and he didn't do any of that.
All right, George, appreciate that. Well thought out response on where he thought Prime Minister Carney fell short in that meeting yesterday. Brenda, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Well, I was impressed with how our Prime Minister conducted himself at the Oval Office. I was very impressed of his eloquently a statement on real estate leading up to Canada is not for sale ever. I was impressed that he showed the American people how a true diplomat leader of a democratic country should conduct himself, period. And for those two that didn't vote, shame on you, because at your age you should know better. I got a ride to my polling station. There was a number on the back of the card, call for a ride. There was just no excuse there, period. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Brenda. I could not agree more on that last point. And especially regular listeners like Andre and Grant to this show know what's going on, right? They're engaged in the issues. So surely, even by osmosis, you pick up an idea or two about who you are going to vote for and all of the various ways to get your vote out. Come on. That was very disappointing to hear. What Brenda is referring to when it comes to the real estate comments that Mark Carney made, the Prime Minister, in his meeting with the President yesterday.
Takes two to tango, right? But no, I do. I mean, I believe it would be a massive tax cut for the Canadian citizens. You get free military, you get tremendous medical cares and other things.
As you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever.
Ever. It won't be for sale ever. We are a sovereign nation. I'm with Brenda. I thought that Mark Carney carried himself in a statesman-like manner in that meeting yesterday, but George called moments ago and said, you know what? He should have done more. Should have done more to promote the relationship, the economic advantages of where we're at as neighbors, Canada and the U.S. Mark is with us on Talkback. Good afternoon, Mark.
Good afternoon, Mike. Couple of quick things for you.
Sure.
First of all, I really like what I heard about the Kitchener Auditorium, the new renos, the new restaurant going on.
Yep.
That place is iconic, and I'm so happy they're doing what they're doing.
Just remember, City of Kitchener is going to have to put up $2 million of your tax dollars for that restaurant.
Mike, it's worth it.
I hear you, brother.
Okay. Secondly, Kyle is way off base. That guy should have got a 3-game suspension.
More than 3. How about 33?
Well,
okay.
Come on,
okay. I'm exaggerating.
But yeah, 3, no question about it. Okay.
Absolutely.
So Kyle, put your boots back on, and see you later.
All right, Mark. Thanks for the call. Sam Bennett, the dirtiest player in hockey, and yet somehow he escapes a suspension for elbowing our goaltender, Anthony Stolarz, right in the head. And now Stolarz can't play tonight when the Leafs take on the Florida Panthers again. But, sure, Sam Bennett, the dirtiest player in the league, can play tonight. There's a conspiracy. They're all out to get our Leafs. That's what's happening. This is the Talkback Hour on the Mike Farwell Show. I'm only half kidding just half kidding. It's not a full conspiracy against the Leafs. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is your hour to talk back here on the program. Just be careful. You might say something like Andre and Grant, oh, I didn't vote, and then I will mock you. You might say something like Kyle, oh, that wasn't much of an elbow to your goalie's head, and I'll put you in the penalty box. Things like that. But it's all in good fun, right? Talk back where we solicit your opinions. Terry, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. Thank you for correcting that. Yes, the slap shot to the head probably caused that, concussion type thing, I guess.
The elbow didn't help, but the slap shot probably did the damage, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what did most of the damage. And that trapezoid, yes, that is to protect the goalies. That's why it's in there.
Exactly. So Sam Bennett, you're agreeing that Sam Bennett's the dirtiest hockey player in the league.
I just hope that Stolarz gets better, because in July when they're doing the parade down Yonge Street, he might have to wear a bump cap on the convertible.
Attaboy, Terry. I like it.
Anyway, Mike. Andre, isn't he blind? How are you supposed to vote if you can't see the ballot?
Well, you get help. Surely there are ways.
So someone could grab his hand and...
No, there's telephone. There's got to be a way. We will make it accessible. We know this, Terry. Come on.
Okay, I got you. And Mike, I know Mark called yesterday. He was asking about your Barry's asparagus farm.
Yes.
Is he going to do a Houdini like he did last year? Because I was looking forward to meeting him. We were going to talk about his vinyl collection, and he doesn't show up. So I'm hoping that he was asking because he's going to make an appearance. So
well, if he starts hitchhiking now, I don't think Mark owns his own car. I can't be sure, but if he starts hitchhiking now, he'll make it there in time.
Well, you can always grab a scooter or one of the ones you push with your foot, I guess. Anyway, have a good one, Mike.
Thanks, Terry. Appreciate it. Yes, Barry's Asparagus, Sunday, June the 1st, mark it down. It's another Farwell for Hire event, and it's delicious. Deep fried asparagus right out of the field into the fryer on the schmuck truck. And out comes this most delicious deep fried asparagus with a little garlic aioli dip. It's unreal. And we sell it to make money for cystic fibrosis research. You'll love it. June the 1st, it's a Sunday, at Barry's Asparagus. Mark it down. We'll give you all of the details in terms of timing as the date draws nearer. Tom, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Hey, how you doing, Mike? Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you. Thanks for calling.
A couple of things. I know you're all over Kyle there about the elbow. I'm not even a Leafs fan, but I'm following him. Yeah, he should have got a penalty for that. I don't think it's as bad as, I know you're a mad Leafs fan, but I don't think it's as bad as they're saying.
No, he's the dirtiest player in the league. He should never play again.
I don't know that, but for what he did to him, definitely he should have been getting a 2 minutes and probably a punch in the face from his defenseman.
Okay, now thank you for that part, right? Because Craig Berube said that in his media scrum yesterday. Well, when I played, somebody would have taken care of that right away. Probably me. That's what I want to see happen, Tom. You do that to my goalie, and I'm going to cross-check you right in the chops. That's what I would do.
100%.
Yeah.
But I watched that play, and on their defenseman and the Leafs players' defense, they probably didn't even see it happen because it was a flyby, quick little shot, and off they went.
Yes.
After the replay, the team members seeing it, the players seeing it, somebody should have crushed that guy.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and what else was I going to say about voting? I never used to vote, and I used to get a lot of crap for it because I don't follow politics, so I'm not knowledgeable in the scenario. So for me to vote for somebody is almost wrong for me because I never knew what I was talking about. So who do I vote for? Who my father wants me to vote for? Who my girlfriend wants me to vote for? That'd be just as irresponsible in my books.
But
I started following it more.
Good.
Since Trudeau, and I honestly think Trudeau has really ruined the country in a lot of ways. That's when I started following it more, learning. Now, for the guys that don't vote, the guys that gripe that don't vote, the only way I can see them having something to say about it is if somebody gets voted in with all of these political promises and then punt those out the window and don't do anything of their political promises. That's where the complaint in my books could happen. This guy promised this, and all of his campaign speeches, and then backpedals and does whatever the hell he wants. But to me, my theory before was, in that level of politics, they're all criminals. Because when you're voting, when you're your local MP in your little ward, you do it because you're doing it because you love it, and you want to make the place better. I find as you move farther up the food chain, you do it more for political reasons and personal benefit, whether it's financial, whatever it happens to be. That's where I have my discrepancies, is when it gets to that level, they're all shady. And it's been proven over and over with all of the legalities that Trudeau did and the morals and values and all the backstabbing that has gone on, even with Ford, with that whole green space crap. I used to love Ford. That stuff starts happening, I got no use for you. Because that's just shady politics.
Tom, I appreciate the call. And listen, I understand the cynicism that, they're all crooks. I don't believe that they are. I certainly will remain optimistic that they are not all crooks. But your cynicism is hard-earned. I get it. You said you were going to do that. I know I've said this many, many times, but I never forgave Dalton McGuinty. Came into office way back in, 2003? And said, I will not raise your taxes. And promptly, like it must have been his first day in the office, we got our health premium in this province. Call it a premium all you want, still a tax, and you increased it. Like, come on. So would I ever vote Liberal again after that? Not a chance. Not a chance, right? So what we need is everybody to be like that. Like Tom clearly is firm in his stance. You fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Well, Tom's not getting fooled twice, right? We all need to adopt that. But I like Tom's approach, too. This is the argument against mandatory voting. When we talk about low voter turnout, and we didn't even get to 70% on this recent election, I'm like, it's not enough. But if you, and so sometimes we'll say, well, we should do like Australia, mandatory voting. But what you end up with is people like Tom before he got informed and engaged, and they're voting why? Based on what? I'm not sure we want those votes, right? Take some time, learn about it, and make an educated, informed vote. That's the way we got to go here. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. You know that my new favorite hobby in the month of May is watching the Farwell for Hire 50-50 jackpot grow, right? It's over $37,000 now. $37K. I would love to see it get to $40K by Friday at noon when we give away a $2,500 cash early bird prize thanks to our friends at TLC Pet Food. So the jackpot now more than $37,000. Take-home prize more than $18,500. You can get a ticket. Starts at just $10 at cf5050.ca. cf5050.ca. Get your ticket. You could win that jackpot, which is only going to grow through the month. And if you buy your ticket before Friday at noon, you are in for the early bird cash prize, $2,500 from TLC Pet Food. Our friends at Conestoga Electric have also stepped up in a big way. They're hiring me later this month to spend a day with their team, but they are also incentivizing their employees to buy 50-50 tickets. So what the company, Conestoga Electric, is going to do is any Conestoga Electric employee who buys 50-50 tickets will get 50% of their ticket purchase reimbursed up to $100. So if an employee buys $100 in tickets, the company gives back $50. And then if one of the employees wins the 50-50, the winnings will be split with Conestoga Electric, and half the money will be sent back to cystic fibrosis research. So just a way to incentivize employees. The company's putting up a match. So basically buying half the tickets for you. And then they'll split the winnings at the end, should they be the lucky winners. And it's like getting half-price tickets. And then cystic fibrosis benefits as well. Maybe your company has a program like that or could make use of some recreation funds, or we had a name for them around here. Anyway, the party fund, to put up the streamers and buy the cake when somebody has a birthday in the office. Thank you to Conestoga Electric for doing what they're doing to support our efforts. Thanks to TLC Pet Food for putting up that huge cash prize, $2,500. This Friday at noon will be awarded to an early bird winner, and you could win the early bird and the big jackpot. Just get your tickets at cf5050.ca. That's all the time we have for today. We'll get back together tomorrow morning at 9 for some more conversation, including you're going to meet one of the area's biggest Leafs fans, and it's not just me. That's on tomorrow's show, which, again, will get underway tomorrow morning at 9. My name is Mike Farwell.